This is Face to Face with the co-founders of the National Association of Expert Advisors, Jay Kinder and Michael Reese.
We believe that we can change the real estate industry. There is a better way to sell real estate.
Your success is ultimately a sum of the decisions that you make.
And they're really developing a process, a set of guidelines, a set of procedures.
They're also best-selling authors.
Here today to discuss the issue is Jay Kinder and Michael Reese.
All right, welcome to Face with Jay Kinder, and my good buddy Michael Reese, as you can see, is not with me here today. So it's just going to be me. I'm flying solo. He's actually, I believe, probably by now getting close to the slopes in Colorado, and he's snowboarding for the weekend. So I'm doing this podcast today, and I'm going to blow your mind. So get ready. I have done a lot of preparation in thinking about what I wanted to cover. Since Michael wouldn't be here, I could always just tell stories about shenanigans and things of that nature. But I'm going to let him off the hook, and I'm just going to add a ton of value, the best that I can. So I want to talk about. We've talked a lot, especially for those of you who've been listening to all of the podcasts. We've talked a lot about the business model as it relates to acquiring a new customer. What we haven't spent a lot of time on, but is equally important to your business, is really the lifetime value of a customer and the retention and repeat and referral business that you have, potentially in your database. So I'm going to tell you a couple of stories to get started. One of which was where I first started this focus on really lifetime value, maximizing the lifetime value. And understanding. Then what we'll also do on this podcast is I'm go into the detail of how you can implement this in your database and into your systems that you're already doing in your business, so that you can actually get the value from actually going and implementing these ideas. So these are, and then we're going to talk a little bit of substance of as it relates to data and how we can use data to really amplify conversion. Of nurture specifically. You can call it leads, you can call it whatever you want, but I'm specifically going to be talking about nurtures in some situations in a conversation I had yesterday. And we'll talk about how you might use that as well to remain personally relevant with anyone in your database, and how we see that in the future and what we're focused on as it relates to that. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. This is definitely something that every time we help a client or a business partner to implement these things, or in the past a coaching client, we've seen literally almost immediate results in the growth of their business. The reason is most people don't have systems in place for managing, measuring, and improving and expanding the lifetime value of a customer. So that's kind of going to be the focus today. But I want to talk about the first time that I was introduced to this, which was at an event with Jay Abraham. And I'll never forget it. There's a couple times in my life where I've been kind of, blown away in terms of just not something I wasn't focused on. And at the time we were doing probably 500 plus transactions, and we were just looking for ways to improve, maybe expand. At the time we were actually looking to expand the business to another marketplace because we had 15%, 14% market share, something like that. And the very beginning of this event, it was me and John Kitchens, and we're sitting there, and he says, anybody in the room here who's ever gotten a referral, raise your hand. Everybody raises their hand. And he says, if you've ever gotten more than one referral, raise your hand. More than three, everybody's told raise their hand, right? We've all gotten referrals, right? And then he said, okay, now how many of you have systems in place that are consistently delivering predictable referrals to you in your business? And everybody's hand went down. And as I thought about it, I wanted to keep my hand up. But the reality was, at the time, I was so focused on trying to acquire new business that I really didn't have good systems in place. And I think most of you probably are shaking your head going, I think I know where this is going. That there's an opportunity to probably amplify the relationship you have with people that already know, like, and trust you, and leverage that to be another lever for you for acquiring new business, the people that you haven't ever met before, as well as the repeat business that that we hope people are going to come back to us. A lot of them do when we provide excellent service, but as we grow and expand our business, sometimes we're not as in touch with those clients. So that repeat business starts to be less predictable. And certainly most of us, I would say, don't have a database that is capturing the information, the data that you need in order to report on whether or not someone is a repeat customer or not, or they've referred you business or not. And we're going to talk about some of that as well. So that's what the questions that Jay Abraham was asking. And there was one person in the room, I remember looking at him, they were standing up, who has more than 3 systems, more than 4 systems in place for Journey, more than 5 systems. And this one person, who was obviously a repeat attendee to this event, was well aware of the benefits of, and these are people from a bunch of different industries, which I have to tell you that most of the things that we do here at NAEA is really because of our reaching outside of the real estate industry and looking at what other industries are doing, and then looking at how to adapt, adopt, and apply them in the real estate industry, which is where our focus obviously is. So it wasn't until I got outside of real estate and really started to see these other businesses and how they run their business. There's some businesses that are 100% by referral. There's some businesses till today that are 80, 90% newspaper ad, driven by new customer acquisition from newspaper or magazines. So when you think about all of the ways that you can grow your business, Jay Abraham brings a lot to the table. And in this moment, he was amplifying the point that I had a huge database of people over the years that I'd done a lot of business with, and I wasn't focused on doing anything to try to, number one, I couldn't tell you what percentage of that database was referring, much less give you any metrics related to the results of that. So and I felt like I was doing a good job, so I did go back and do the math, and I think I was getting maybe 25%, if I want to say, is right about where we were. And we ended up within the 12 months bumping up our repeat referral to 48% of the overall business. And the question becomes, okay, so maybe you don't have any systems in place, and of course Jay Abraham goes on to say, that he has 93 different referral systems that you can adapt, adopt, and apply into your business to help you maintain your relationships with clients and generate referrals, and that are systematic, and they happen all the time. And that's something that it really stuck with me. And I went back and we focused on that. We implemented that. We built a raving fan club. We were the ones that, if you've heard of raving fan club, or if you haven't, we invented that. That was us years ago, back in like 2006. So that's been something that we've done to try to maximize the value of a lifetime value of a customer. And then there was another situation that I recognized, again, another industry. So once you get introduced to someone like Jay Abraham, who we spend an enormous amount of money with, by the way, and we really give a tremendous amount of credit to, because he's really been probably the person who's changed our thinking the most. And it's thinking differently is what really creates innovation and breakthroughs in the business for us. So Jay Abraham has been a great mentor to us, and he was instrumental in helping us to implement and put some of these systems into place. So I want to tell you a story about a guy by the name of Shannon Brown. As I started paying more attention to all the different businesses around me and how they operate and how they get business, I had an experience. This was a long time ago, so I'm going to tell an old story. You'll be able to know by the kind of vehicle it was. And it was literally, this was 2003. And this was when the big aha had come from. Actually, I don't know if that's true, actually. It might have been, it would have been 2003. Actually, that's why the dates weren't matching up in my mind. What happened was, I recalled, after going to Jay Abraham, I recalled what had happened, this experience that I had when I started. He asked me a question. He said, think about a business, someone you do business with, someone that you always go back to. And I challenge you to do the same thing, by the way, while I'm talking about this. Think about someone you do business with right now that you always just go back to this particular person all the time, or this particular department store, company, business, gas station, whatever it is. What is it that makes you so loyal to a company that you go back and you repeat? Or think about a situation where you're an evangelist for someone. Like if somebody's talking about something, you're like, oh, you got to go do this. You got to go here. This is where you should go. Oh, I'm going to, whatever the case may be, right? So, and as he's telling me the story, to think about all these people that you go back to, or that you refer a ton of business to, what came up was Shannon Brown in my experience in 2003. I've been literally a champion of this guy as a probably one of the top car salesmen in the GM brand at the time, and he was over the Cadillac and Hummer division at the time. He has since moved on to Lexus. It's a different, for different reasons, it's a different business model there. But he was one of the top guys in the country working for working for this dealership, and I found myself referring him all the time. And so I was thinking about why is that? What did he do so differently to make a car buying experience in such a way that I'm willing to literally stop people in conversation and refer him? And so that was the brain teaser that Jay Abraham was giving me, and that was the story that came up. And so I'm going to tell you the story of what Shannon Brown did to get, I think it was about 13 referrals from me over the course of probably about 3 to 4 years. And very, very minimal. Probably an investment of his time of maybe I would say less than 10 minutes total. And he literally cemented his place as the go-to guy for anyone who's buying a vehicle, whether you're buying a GM vehicle, a Cadillac, Hummer, didn't matter. I still call him to this day, and he's been my story that I start with when I start to talk about this particular subject as we dive into it. So I'll never forget. I bought 2003, bought a brand new Hummer, the H2 when it came out. Me and Michael both had them wrapped in our businesses. That was kind of the first that they ever hit the ground. And I was at the dealership and I was looking to buy one, and I was, they were dropping them off the truck, and they were selling like as fast as you get them off the truck if they weren't already pre-sold. And so I went through the experience, bought the vehicle. I'll be honest with you, it wasn't the greatest buying experience. Anytime you go buy a vehicle, you got to jump through all their hoops, meet with all the different folks and everything you get through. And it was 9 o'clock or whatever. I was really excited about the vehicle, but I don't recall. And at the time, when I'm reflecting on this, I didn't recall anything magical about the experience. It was any brutal home purchase or car buying experience you may have had. You don't really think of a lot of really great things that happened during that time, and there wasn't anything I was really special about Shannon Brown other than he's just a real nice guy. Did a good job, no problems. I probably would have never remembered his name. And I would challenge you, who was the last person you bought a vehicle from? Do you remember the car salesman's name? Most of the time, probably 70% of the time, when I ask that question, the answer is I have no idea, right? And even though I get note cards and all kinds of silly things from people who I've bought vehicles from, no one had ever done this one thing that made all the difference in the lifetime value of me as a customer. I was the most valuable, probably one of the most valuable people to Shannon Brown in his business for a few years, and he only did this one simple thing. And so after I bought this Hummer, I took it home. The very next day, I get a call from Shannon Brown. I didn't know it was Shannon Brown. It was a number I didn't recognize. It was an Oklahoma City number, which is where that dealership was. And it's like, ring, ring. I said, hello. He said, hey, Jay Kinder, this is Shannon Brown, Baltimore Hummer. I just want to make sure you got everything you needed, man. How's the Hummer? Have you taken it off-road yet? Is there anything, you put any clients in it yet? Showing any houses yet? Said, no, yeah, we took it off-road last night, actually. And, I said, no, man, I'm good. He said, okay, man, well, I know you were, talking about doing some upgrades and some things to it. And if you decide to do that, let me know. I can get you a discount at in the shop or whatever, for their dealership had a retail side where you could buy the extra stuff and whatever, all the chrome and everything else you can put on them. And I said, yeah, man. He said, I'll get you a discount. Just let me know before you come up here if you're going to be looking at something, and I'll make sure I take care of you. I was like, all right, man. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. And so I hang up the phone. All good. Actually, I believe that might have actually been the second call. So, but we'll keep going. We'll just keep going as if it was the same. So the second call comes, and Shannon Brown calls me. This has been more than a decade ago, so I'm trying to recall exactly which phone call is which. Not 100% true. Doesn't really matter. Keep paying attention. I promise it'll be worth it. So he calls me again. He said, "Hey, Jay Kinder, this is Shannon Brown, Baltimore Hummer." And I said, hey, what's going on, Shannon? He said, hey, man, I just wanted to make sure you're good to go. It's been a couple weeks since you bought the Hummer. Is everything still working? Do you have any questions about how to operate anything? Have you been showing any houses in it? What do the kids think about the TV screens and this, that, and the other in the back? I was like, oh, no, we love it, man. He's like, if you need anything else, man, you just let me know. I said, no, man, I'm good, man. I appreciate it. And normally, this happens to me actually with Mercedes too, because they're super strict, I guess. Most dealerships are these days. Is that you get the call the day you're supposed to get the survey. Hey, man, just want to let you know you're getting a survey. How many of you have gotten that call, right? Or the email that follows and the text message and everything else. Hey, if there's anything I can do to fix it, let me know. That's how most car dealerships handle managing their 5-star dealership, is by the day you're going to get the survey, trying to make sure everything's okay. Shannon Brown did something different. He called me day one that I owned the vehicle. He called me in, I think, the second week that I owned the vehicle. Now it's the third week. He calls me again. Hey, Jay Kinder, Shannon Brown, Baltimore Hummer. Now, at this point in time, Shannon Brown's number and name has been saved in my phone. And the reason I saved it in there is because for some reason, over the course of the last 2 calls, I felt like, hey man, this guy's just trying to help me. He's really genuinely, he made the sale. I wasn't thinking, oh, he's not just in it for the sale. He really cares about me. That's not what I was thinking. Because you don't think like that when someone is just genuinely being nice and calling and checking in on you. But I saved his number in my phone, which is still in my phone today, probably in my pocket. And so I ended up, get off the phone the 3rd time. He calls me back at 30 days. He said, hey man, this is, Shannon, hey, Jay Kinder, Shannon Brown, Baltimore Hummer, how you doing, man? Just wanted to check in with you, man. You've had it, the Hummer 30 days. Just wanted to make sure there's nothing that I can do. Is there anything I can help you with? Anything at all, let me know. I said, no, man, it's great, man. It's perfect. Man, I really love it. And then he said, hey, I need you to do me one favor. And he paused. And I said, man, sure, anything, man, what? Right? So now I'm committed. Like I've already and thinking back, it's so funny. It was natural for me to say, man, I want to help this guy. I'll do anything to help this guy. And again, think about this. I didn't have the greatest overall experience in buying a vehicle. After the sale, he's made a series of 4 phone calls, and all of a sudden, I have this feeling about why I want to help him genuinely as a friend. Now he's in my phone. He's not just the guy that sold me the car. Never hear from him again. He's actually someone that I consider a trusted individual, someone that I would go to if I needed anything as it relates to a vehicle. And that's what ended up happening. So he said, here's what I need you to do. If there's anybody you can think of that might be buying a vehicle, whether it's a GM vehicle, a Cadillac, a Hummer, or anything else, if you would you just pass along my information and let them know I can help them? I was like, dude, absolutely, man. Absolutely, sure will, man. I appreciate you, buddy. So anyways, from that point on, I had referred 3 or 4 people in the first year that bought Hummers to him, anybody. And the reason I remembered the story was because I remembered one time being at Outback Steakhouse, and I was standing in the bar area. It was crowded. There's people sitting behind me, and I'm like, and I hear over here at the table, and it's loud, it's bar noise, everything's kind of, it's always kind of loud in there, but we were kind of crammed in there, and I hear over my shoulder, I hear someone saying, yeah, man, have you seen the new Hummer, man? Those are awesome. I'm looking at going and, maybe getting one. I literally turned around, I interrupted these people, and I pulled out my phone and got Shannon Brown's phone number, and I gave it to him. I said, man, if you're thinking about buying a Hummer, you need to call this guy right here. That's who I bought mine from. He's the only person I would talk to if I was thinking about buying one. He'll take great care of you. And I was genuine about that referral. They didn't know me from Adam. They ended up calling him because Shannon told me someone called him the next day. I don't know if the guy bought or not, but I'm pretty sure he probably did. And the reality is that I was an evangelist for Shannon Brown. And I think sometimes what happens when we start thinking about growing our business, focusing on new business and building the business, that we don't always think about what is the impact that I could have on the relationships that I already have if I just make sure that I do a great job of making them feel special. And that's really a very minor thing that you can do that can have a major impact on your business. For instance, I was just one car sale, or I could be 13 car sales. And how many people do you have in your database right now that you've neglected over a period of over a career that you could be staying in better touch with, or you could be making feel special, and they remember you the way I remembered Shannon Brown. So that's the story I wanted to start with. Now I wanted to tell you, and that's an easy thing you could do. Put 4 calls in your calendar after closing. Do the same thing that I just described to you. I promise you it'll make an impact on your business. That's something you should just be doing. And as you build a business, should be something you consider. So I know a lot of you are, maybe higher up in the business echelon of, in your real estate practice. Maybe you're, I think a lot of the listeners, just from the feedback we get in the comments, are, doing 200, 300, 400, 500 transactions or more, looking to really build and expand into new markets. That's really the focus of what we're talking about in face-to-face and the business model. But I want to get into something that is really important for all of you, especially at every level, that if you look past this, you're going to be leaving a lot of money on the table, and this is something that you don't have to spend a lot of money to do, but it's a process and systems and a way of thinking about your business that you should have in place before you focus too much on all new business or stepping out or expanding to a new marketplace. Because the last thing you want to have happen is that as you expand into a new market, if that's the goal, watching your business start to suffer from the effort of going into a new market. So I want to talk a little bit about maximizing conversion and using a tactic. I'm going to save that. So I'm going to share with you a little bit later on how to use data to convert nurtures and how the impact that you can have and the investment you should be making on someone who is a likely candidate to move. So I'll talk on that here in a second. So I want to get into really the lifetime value of a customer and kind of give you a little bit more nuggets, a few layers deeper on how to capture some of this information from a client, where you should be storing that information, and how you want to act on that information. And it'll get into a conversation about data, and then I'll leverage that same conversation to tell you a little bit more about how to do that to also convert more business as well. So that's kind of my game plan here. So I have a little bit of a structure to my madness today. Since I don't have somebody to ping and pong off of, I have to try to put it together in a way that it's going to come out and make sense to you guys, because you know that I have ADHD. So going back to lifetime value of a customer. So this is the reality. Look at your database. The last 100 people that bought a home, or bought a home from you, or sold and bought in the same, that are still in your marketplace. If you knew that number, how many of those 100 people are going to send you a referral this year? So most real estate agents know that a lot of your business comes by referral. If you're in what we call stage 2 of your business, you probably are doing 20, around up to 25 transactions a year. 15 to 25 is kind of where that frame is, and you probably do get a lot of repeat and referral business if you've been in the business 4 or 5 years or more. But if you're stuck there, it's because you're not doing a lot of new business. But if as we grow the business and you get up to 100, 200, 300 deals, what starts to happen is you become further and more disconnected from the customer. So your ability to get the repeat and referral business starts to go away, because you don't have that relationship one-to-one with those customers. And we tend to ignore that fact because we don't have access to data that lets us know that. So one of the things that you can do, and this is something you can just download. Google and download is an easy way. We've got systems and processes and built technology around this, but the McKay 66. So it's Harvey McKay. It's called the McKay 66. If you go Google that, you'll find a document online you can probably download for free. And it's 66 questions you can ask about a customer. And what we've learned is that if you can gather pertinent information, for instance, when we did this, my painter turned out to be my #1 referring person in my database. And right now you probably don't know who's referred you the most business. You have instinctively you could name the #1, 2, or 3, or 4 people. There's a great book called Hug Your Customer by Jack Mitchell, who we interviewed probably I think in 2009 about this topic as we were building this out. And it's just a great book. And he starts by telling a story about how he was on stage. He has the #1 most dollar per square foot productivity or revenue per square foot of any retail clothing and suit store, basically, of any in the world. And he explained his methodology, which is Hug Your Customer, which is really this whole business model that I'm explaining to you right now. He explained how he could name if you asked him, he could name the top 100 customers in his database right now. He knew his top 100 spenders by name, and he knew their children, and he knew information about every single one of them. He memorized that. He knew that information. It was the most valuable knowledge that he had. And he goes on to tell the story. It's a great book. You should read it. And so when it comes to the lifetime value of your database, your business is your database. That's what it is. So there's really no value if you can't point back to what is predictable and repeatable about your business. And we've talked about that, like I started the podcast, we've talked about that as it relates to predictability in new business and how you're growing the business. And that's great for funding and evaluation, but your real value when you go to sell is going to be based on what's predictable that is in this business that you can actually predict from your database. So that's where a lot of the value is going to be held. And so if you don't have systems in place for that, then you're maybe leaving a lot of money on the table if you're ever going to want to exit or sell the business. And there's nothing really that anyone that lifts up the hood of your business and looks at it and can say, I can point to this as value because I know it's going to repeat. And so you have to build something that does that if you want to be able to, actually, sell your business for a multiple of anything. And so as we went through this process, we learned, capturing information about, clients that are your key clients and your best people. You want to capture it about everybody. And what I did not know, and I spent a lot of time actually drinking beer with my painter, because he's pretty cool, and I flipped a lot of houses, so I spent a little bit of time with him, which also probably had a little bit of influence on why he was the number one guy. I'd sent 4 referrals in 1 year that closed, more than that in referrals, but 4 that closed. And I just didn't know it. So, but I do know this about Dave DeBaca. Dave is a big OU fan. And there's nobody that I know that's a bigger fan than Dave DeBaca, a fan of Oklahoma Sooner football. And so that year, we got him tickets to one of the games as a gift, because he was the value that he brings and he had at that time he had never actually sold a property with us. He did since then. He did move, but he'd never actually even done business with me. Yet he'd sent me 4 referrals, and I didn't know that. So there's probably a lot of this that goes on in your business, and because we get so busy, we don't take the time to make sure we're capturing that information in a way that it's usable. And in the future, what is super important when it comes to follow, past client, repeat, referral, the number one way to get clients to want to refer to you is to remain personally relevant with the client. There's 2 things you have to do. You have to remain professionally relevant to the client, and you have to remain personally relevant. If you can do both of those things, then you're going to maximize the relationship, and the way you're going to see that is you're going to have that in the database where you can track who's sending you referrals, how many referrals they've sent you over time, your sphere of influence, which Dave was in our sphere of influence, your sphere to referral ratio. 100 people in your sphere, how many of them sent you a referral last year? You want to measure that. How many people are in your database? How many of them are going to send a referral that has done business in the past? So you want to be able to capture those types of people in your database, and you want to track where your business is coming from, so that you can not only reward them for sending you referrals, but that you know who to invest back into when it comes to the lifetime value of your customer. When you look at your business, a lot of real estate agents look at the business as the transaction just begins at the time of the closing of their first purchase with you. It's not where the transaction ends. The lifetime value begins at the moment that they buy that house and you've already been paid. That's where the lifetime value begins. And people think that that's the end of the transaction, move on to the next one. And I was guilty of that myself. Not that I didn't love people I did business with, I just didn't have a business process, and I didn't understand the value of maximizing that relationship. And so by implementing the McKay 66, what you'll be able to do is you'll be able to start tracking better, information that you can use in conversation down the road. If you don't know, if you're like me and you forget what people's interests are, but when you're personally relevant, and I don't know how many of you have ever used Stumbled Upon, for instance. I'll give you guys an example of what's coming in the future. If you use Stumble Upon, it's a pretty cool site. You can stumble. It's like a great way to waste about an hour of time, and it goes by really quickly. If you put in your interests, which all my stuff is like self-help, business, this, that, and the other. But people, if you know what their interest is, say your interest is golf. On Stumbled Upon, you can hit stumble, and it'll stumble to like some random websites about golf, or maybe it's some new toy for golfers or whatever. But if you can tie, I'm a fan, in my database loves golf, to a search that goes out there and finds a website like Stumbled Upon does, and is some new kind of toy for golfers. It doesn't matter what it is, and you send, hey, just wanted to check, just thought you might enjoy this. I ran across it. It made me think of you, something you might like or whatever, and that automatically goes out because you have that data in your database. You can now you can stay personally relevant with people over a period of time, over a lifetime, and it'll look just as though you personally sent those messages. So there's ways to do with automation and with data now to really maximize the biggest portion of what we lose as we grow our businesses, and that is the personal relationships that we have with people. It's not that we don't care; it's that we just don't have the time. So doing something like that is something that's where we're headed. We're not just building things for the fun of it. We have a master plan, and this is one of the major areas where we're going. And I had a conversation yesterday, and we'll wrap this up here in the next probably 10 minutes, hopefully, unless I get long-winded. I had a conversation yesterday with someone who was wanting to come to one of our ISA boot camps, and they fill up quick. We can't fit a lot of people in there because it's hands-on and super detailed, and we're training people up, ISAs and the business owner operator. So it's limited, and there wasn't a spot available. I believe that was the case for this gentleman, but may not have been. But he was coming from a place of having just hired a data scientist to help nurture a relationship with a potential buyer. I want to say it was a higher end buyer, may have been a higher end seller. And I'm sure he's probably listening. So if the story is not correct, it's because I don't know that I know all the details, but I do know the gist of it. So I don't want to fabricate anything, but I think this is pretty much the way it went. It's pretty fascinating. And so he had hired a data scientist the day before, which means that he was very in tune with what we talk about on this podcast. And the situation was, this data scientist comes back and had basically found the Spotify list that they play and saw that they listen to jazz and they listen to one particular artist more than anything, and had recommended, hey, you should buy them tickets to an upcoming show to this particular artist. They're going to be in your city next month. And that would be something that would be super relevant. Probably a little creepy, but it would be super relevant, right? So when you think about it from the context of somebody who doesn't really know you and you didn't ask them, hey, what are your interests? What do you like? And they didn't tell you that jazz artist. Or if you do ask that question, which if you have the McKay 66, you would ask that question, and you would learn about your customer, because doesn't have to be done through data. It can be done by you just genuinely learning about your customer and then trying to find things that are related. But you can also add technology to this process to expedite how you would do it. So not knowing that this particular artist was, you're probably not going to find that information. You're not going to go that deep with a client. Hey, okay, well, what kind of jazz? Okay, well, who's your favorite artist? Okay, all right. But if you did, you would have that. But since you don't know, it could be a little creepy, right? So, but at the end of the day, buying, would you be willing to invest $80 on a pair of tickets to a jazz concert that's going to make someone's day? And are they more likely to do business with you? You work with a buyer, they haven't committed to you, they haven't even met you, they don't even know if they like you. How do you build a relationship with that person that really kind of solidifies you're going to have the opportunity to do business with them? Pretty good chance that if you bought them tickets to a jazz show, tell them thank you for their time and the conversation, and thought this might be something of interest to you. This coming to town, I had some tickets, I just wanted to give them to you. That's going to go a long ways into securing that client. Nobody's going to get that client away from you, probably ever, just based on that small investment. So when we look at, pretty amazing, right? So when we look at these, we're generating nurtures by calling into neighborhoods, and we're getting a ton of people who have an interest in moving. The challenge becomes, how do we build a relationship with them quickly? And how do we have our partners do that quickly, where that they're not just seen as a neighborhood expert, because that's the positioning you want, but that they actually can make a connection with that person and really become a friend and a trusted advisor, because that's going to be the key to earning that business whenever it does have the opportunity. And if you don't have anything in your business model to allow you to make an investment in those relationships, then you might be leaving a lot of money on the table. So when we look at nurtures and we're getting 200 or 300 a day, those relationships now, how do we get, and interestingly enough, the percentage of these that actually close in the MLS was off the charts, way above what we had in the business model as our expectation, which we would consider a baseline for moving forward in the business model. We blew it out of the water. It was extremely accurate, the number of people that actually did sell that said they were going to. That was somewhat surprising, but it has been consistent. So that's an indicator that rather than spend direct mail 50,000 people, let's just focus on these 200 people that we believe are going to move and that are open to doing business with us, and that we have had a good positive conversation about. So that's where I believe the opportunity to use data to help convert business, conversion, nurture, helping our business partners close more deals by having access to data and putting things in place that allow you to gift, easily and seamlessly to people something that's completely relevant and that's not irrelevant. And the story I always talk about me and Michael did a webinar years and years ago, and we shared all the dumb shit we've done that didn't work. And it was probably one of the funnest webinars we ever did because everybody was laughing and commenting on how much of the same stupid shit they've done. So like, I don't know who the guy is at Amsterdam that sells pins, but if you know that dude, I will hire him tomorrow because he's the best damn salesman I've ever met. The guy that calls trying to sell you pins, and I know you know who I'm talking about because y'all probably get the same calls. They are good. I bought more pins, with my name on them than anything I've ever. I mean, they hit me. They must have knew I was a sucker because I was always buying these pins, and that I never made a sale from that. I always like to look at my pins that have my name on them. I got drawers full of them still probably today. And but there's all these little things you can spend money on in your business. And Michael used to do grocery carts in the grocery carts. He had his face all over the grocery carts in one of the supermarkets. And we just laugh at some of the things that we've spent a bunch of money on. And one of the things that I used to do is I used to mail out. I used to mail out two. The one I remember is the Dallas Cowboys football magnets, which I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan. Now that we're good, that's a good thing. It's really been a struggle for about 20 years. But and I used to mail out Dallas Cowboy calendars to everyone in my database, like all the people in my database. Early on, I did it for a while and then I quit doing it. Why did I quit doing it? Because first of all, I wasn't measuring anything. Second of all, it was stupid. Like how many people they're not all Dallas Cowboy fans, even though maybe they should be, but they're not. So like if that's what you're sending out to your database, how many people are you pissing off? How many people are you becoming incongruent with? Because because you joked about them being a Redskins fan and they know, but you send them a Dallas Cowboys, it's just junk you send them. They're just like, it's like you don't even care about me is what that says. You don't even, that's not, or you put a personal note that say, hey, you should be a Dallas Cowboys fan, that's different. But if you didn't and you're mailing things that are, you send somebody brownies, that's diabetic or whatever the case may be. Like there's, that's what being personally relevant is. And you can do this in helping with convert. You can do this in maximizing the lifetime value of your customer and increasing the referral efficiency ratio for the number of people in your database. There's a lot of ways to remain personally relevant through automation and data and things of that nature. So that's really all I got for you today. So hopefully that was helpful. There's a couple of nuggets there, some things you can put in whatever database you may be using. Of course, we're always open for questions and comments. You can send those to us, and we'll happily answer what we're doing and share that stuff with you as well. So that's all I got for you today. I appreciate you tuning in. Sorry Mr. Reese wasn't here for you today to add, to drop the value on you. Hopefully that was okay, and you still got some value out of this. I know you did. So hope you have a great week and go out there and crush it. And as we always say here at NAEA and the Face to Face podcast, we'll either see you at the top or from the top. Make it a great day.